In this video, I'm going to run down what I think makes a good email marketing template. Now, these are a design that I did for a client of mine, and I'm going to break down the aspects that really led to this email being a really high converting and engaging email. So let's get into it. I use Figma for pretty much all of my clients' email designs, and here are the key elements. Straight off the bat, we have our header bar. This is the first thing that people actually see in an email. A lot of people think it's the header image, but if we read from the top down, which some people say we read from the bottom up, but from a visual perspective, I think we're actually reading from the top down. This is the first thing that's going to be in there. And right here, we have an offer. Now, this offer has been used previously, so we're just referencing it here as well. You can make this header bar literally anything you want. You could say something like free shipping, or buy one, get one free, or satisfaction guaranteed, anything like that to help encourage the purchase. I found these to be very useful. I always like to have the logo in there, and then within the header image, I like to have some text. Now, the header image after this header bar is the first thing people are going to see, meaning it needs to be impactful and it always needs to have a call to action within it. You'll notice that there is a button here and people can click try now, and that's going to take them directly to the store. Now, ideally, I like to have a bit of shadow behind products, but I think not having the shadow here made these pop a little bit more. And on top of that, in lieu of having a product focus, this is obviously a product focus email, I actually like to use images with people's faces and eyes looking right at the reader. That I have seen increases conversion rates. Images with people in them works better. This client did not have anything like that, so we had to use the product images. But if you have images with people staring at the reader, they tend to work a lot better. Body copy, I try and keep the body copy short and to the point and make sure it's web safe. Not having a web safe font will mean that the font won't render correctly when you're actually sending the email out. It may look good for you because you have the font installed on your computer, and we all like to make sure our brands look special and unique, but when we're sending the emails and the recipient doesn't have that font installed on their computer, it's going to render really weirdly. So make sure the font you use is a web-safe font. Also, before I go any further, just note I have a mobile and desktop version. I'll quickly go into that shortly, but note that the width here is 600 wide, and height can really be whatever you want. So, secondary call to action, or second CTA, not a secondary call to action, rather. This is, it is a secondary call to action. It's the same focus, though, but it's just below the text. So if somebody scrolls, they don't have to scroll back up to click. They can just click right here. I always like to have that there. Make it clear, punchy, straight to the point. Below that, I usually like to have product focuses or best sellers, regardless of what the topic of the email actually is, unless it's something where it's like, hey, a post-purchase thank you flow, just thanking them for their first order, and it's like plain text, then obviously you're not going to have any imagery in the email itself. But for emails like this, I like to have a product focus or a catalog. Typically, these can be the best sellers or items that you have the highest margins on that you're trying to push. I always like to include them in the email. And notice there's shadow below each product. Just helps. Give it a bit of lift and a bit of dynamic look and feel. Make sure you have call to actions below each one. That's going to help. Secondary focus. This is the secondary focus of the email. So obviously we have the primary focus, which is to get them to try the products. And you could argue that we have the secondary focus just here, and this could be the tertiary focus, but I'm going to call this the secondary focus of the email, and really it can be whatever you want. So if this first offer isn't appealing to the reader and they've scrolled down, you want to have something that's second appealing, or as somewhat more, or has the potential to be appealing to the reader who didn't find the initial aspect of the email appealing. So this could literally be anything, right? Like if you sell shirts and you have a shirt sale going on, but you also sell shoes, and obviously they haven't clicked the shirts here and they've scrolled down, now's the time to pitch your shoes. Below that, I like to have reviews. Always have social proof in every single email. This just helps build that trust, right? So have review blocks. Make sure the reviews are real. I've seen people create fake review blocks and the review doesn't actually even link to anywhere and it's just made up. Don't do that. If you can, to make these look authentic, even more authentic, add images. Pull reviews with people having used images. That's going to help going forward. Trust badges. This also just helps build that trust. Anything you can think of. For example, shipping, satisfaction guaranteed, warranties, Any kind of badge you can install at the bottom, I find super useful. You can even see if you want to work these up a little bit further as well. If you feel like trust is a bit of an issue for you and your business, for example, if you're running a drop shipping store and things are a bit anonymized and the brand isn't very well known, you want to build that trust and have a heavier emphasis on that. For this client here, they are quite well known in the market that they're selling in, so it's really not a massive issue. Socials. Always include socials. I occasionally we get a click with one of these, but it doesn't really cost us anything to have a social icon in the bottom, and it helps build their followings on those. And also, you know what? It plays into social proof as well. Make sure you're only referencing the socials that they actually have, though, right? I've seen businesses where they're like, we're going to have our TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're probably going to build that out shortly. Just chuck it in there. And they chuck it in there, and it doesn't link to anywhere. And that just pisses people off. Make sure there's actually a place and a destination that these social icons are taking people to. Footer. I like to actually build the footer in the email design before we actually build it into Klaviyo or Mailchimp, whatever. But Klaviyo and Mailchimp are automatically going to add this here, which is the unsubscribe link. Now, obviously, part of this footer is actually the logo as well. Include that, obviously. But just have the unsubscribe link in the footer section as well, so it's clear for people to be there. Even if you don't have it, Klaviyo and Mailchimp will automatically add it, but it might not be according to your brand guidelines, so you might as well get ahead of it here. Now, I want to bring some attention here to the mobile side of things. Notice how the header bar has slightly switched, and the dimensions for mobile are, sorry, bear with me. I think it's like 375. Yeah, 375 pixels wide. That's the dimensions that you want to have for mobile. And notice how I've stacked this a little bit differently. So when you're designing this in Klaviyo, you're going to want to have a mobile header bar and a desktop header bar, because these want to render slightly differently, and you want them to show up in a different way based on the device that somebody's looking at. And to do that and have control of how this header bar is going to show up, you need to create a separate one that only shows up on mobile. Let me explain that a bit better. Here we have the desktop version. And if I just set this here to show up on both desktop and mobile, I would have no control of how this is going to look when we squish it from 600 pixels to 375. It could show up all weird. It could be, the line height could be all messed up. I don't know, right? And I can test it to make sure, but I'm pretty positive it is going to make it all weird. So I can control it by setting this block to be a desktop only block, and then having this to be a mobile only block, and dictating how I want that to show up. Apart from that, you'll notice everything is pretty much the same. Font size is 16. I like to have 16 font minimum for mobile. You'll also notice, a bit further down, the products have been stacked differently. This is by design, not by default. The products need to be stacked differently, because if we had them in columns like this on mobile, when they get squished, all of this would show up way smaller, and they wouldn't be able to read them on a mobile device. And on top of that, it would be very hard to click the right button based on the device that they're on. So you want to make them larger here on mobile compared to here, and have them in one column so they're easier to access. Apart from that, everything is consistent and the same. You can even make an argument here for the trust badges that these are actually too small and they won't show up properly on mobile. And to be honest, I'd probably agree with you. And so what I'd actually look at doing is having them go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and having them enlarged so they're actually readable on mobile. So, guys, that is how I design good emails that convert really, really well. What we then do is we take these and we export them into Klaviyo. Now, really important, make sure you do not export solely as images. You actually want to write out some of this stuff when you're actually doing the email, but that'll be for a different video. I'll have a link to this design file just in the description of this video. So if you have any questions, refer to that first and then file them in the comment section. I'm more than happy to answer anything. Also, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my newsletter, monthly or weekly tips actually coming out, just all about email marketing. Awesome, guys. Thanks for watching.